The year was 1865, and the sun had not yet risen over the town of Deadwater when they built the gallows. It stood like a skeletal warning on the edge of the square, rough-hewn pines still damp with morning frost. A man in a long brown duster leaned against a post, chewing tobacco, watching the hangman loop the noose over the crossbeam. The air smelled of blood and wood smoke. From the ridge above town, the land rolled away into mist and silence. Clara Boone watched from the barred window of the sheriff's office, hands folded in her lap, knuckles raw from shackles. Her dress, blue calico, once fine, was torn at the sleeve and stained at the hem with something dark and dried. She had not slept, not really. The cot they gave her was stuffed with old straw and smelled of mold and fear. But it wasn't the bed that kept her awake. It was the silence. The kind of silence that comes when the world has decided you're no longer part of it. She closed her eyes and listened for horses, for thunder, for any sign that he was coming. Boone, Sheriff Riker called, unlocking the cell door with a clink of keys. Time to make peace, if you got any left. She looked up at him, eyes steady, voice quiet. Do you believe I did it? Riker didn't answer. He was a tall man, older than he looked, with a limp in his left leg from a bullet that had never come out clean. His face bore the kind of wear that couldn't be shaved away. Guilt, maybe, or just too many years watching life bleed out into the dirt. Doesn't matter what I believe, he said. Towns voted. Jury heard what it needed to. They heard what they were told to, she said. That stopped him just for a breath. He stepped aside, letting the preacher through. Reverend Morton carried a worn Bible and eyes full of pity. He spoke kindly, but Clara didn't hear much of what he said. Her thoughts were elsewhere, past the hills beyond the edge of town. Where he was, Jesse Creed. She'd last seen him 3 weeks ago, riding out before dawn with dust rising behind him and a promise between them. I'll find the truth, he said. I'll come back with it. Or I won't come back at all. The truth. As if truth had any weight in a town like Deadwater. The gallows loomed outside. Men were gathering already, faces blurred by shadow and smoke. Some she knew, some she had taught their children to read. And yet not one had stood up when she was accused. Riker stepped back in. It's time. They bound her wrists. Not tightly, but firm enough. She didn't cry, didn't beg. Clara Boone was not a woman to fold. She stepped into the sunlight with her head high. The town square lay in full light now, dust swirling around boots and wagon wheels. Children peered from behind skirts. Men shifted their hats as she passed, not out of shame, out of habit. The mayor stood by the platform, cigar clenched between yellow teeth, looking pleased. Silas Wren, the real man with blood on his hands. He'd run this town for 10 years with charm and bribes, whiskey and fear. His son had tried to corner Clara outside the schoolhouse. A scuffle, a scream, and then the boy had been found dead in the river 2 days later. They called it murder, called her jealous, called her wild. Only Jesse had stood up for her, and that got him run out of town with a bounty on his head. He said he would ride north, find the one man who had seen what happened. A drunk trapper named Miles Conroy. A ghost, if he hadn't already died out there. Clara climbed the steps to the gallows, wind tugging her hair loose from its braid. The hangman adjusted the rope. Mayor Wren gave a nod. May justice be swift. May justice be honest, Clara replied, voice clear enough to carry. The crowd murmured. Wren frowned. The preacher began to speak, and then came the sound. Hoofbeats, distant at first, then louder. Rhythmic, urgent, every head turned. A single horse crested the far ridge, foam on its mouth, rider bent low, face covered in trail dust and blood. He wore no hat, and his coat flapped behind him like a banner. Jesse Creed. Clara's breath caught. Her knees nearly buckled. The horse galloped straight into the square, scattering the crowd. A deputy drew his rifle. Too late. Jesse was off the horse before it stopped moving, pistol drawn, eyes burning. Cut her down, he shouted. Hold your fire. Riker barked, stepping between Jesse and the gallows. Guns rose all around. Townsmen reached for their belts, but no one fired. Jesse held out a crumpled, stained piece of paper. This is a confession. Signed by Miles Conroy. Swears Silas Wren's boy raped a girl near the canyon 6 months ago. Swears Clara tried to stop him. Swears the boy fell and hit his head. It was an accident. Riker took the paper, unfolded it slowly. His eyes scanned it. No one spoke. Clara couldn't breathe. This is a statement, Riker said, finally. Not a pardon. It's the truth, Jesse growled. You hang her with that in your hand. You're as guilty as the man who condemned her. Wren stepped forward, red-faced. This is lies. That trapper was a drunk. That boy, he was my son. And you made sure no one asked questions, Jesse said. Just like you made sure the jury was yours. Riker looked at Clara, then back at Jesse. You're a wanted man, he said. Then add another charge, Jesse replied. But she walks free. The wind gusted hard then, rattling the noose. The crowd stood still. Even the preacher looked unsure. Riker handed the confession to his deputy. Take her down, he said. Gasps rippled through the square. The hangman hesitated, then stepped forward and cut the rope. Clara swayed on her feet. Jesse caught her before she fell. Silas Wren drew his pistol. The crack of a gunshot split the air. Jesse pushed Clara down. Wren's hat flew from his head. Riker stood on the gallows, smoke rising from his revolver. That's enough, the marshal said. This town's had enough blood for one day. Jesse helped Clara to her feet. Her hands shook. His did too. You came, she whispered. I told you I would. He smelled like sweat, horses, and fire. His shirt was torn, a long scratch across his neck. I thought you were dead. I was, until I saw the gallows. Around them, the crowd began to break apart. No cheers, no applause, just quiet retreat, as if shame could be scattered with footsteps. Riker climbed down from the gallows. You're not safe here, he said. Wren's got men who'll come after you both. We'll ride tonight, Jesse said. You got a place? Clara spoke before he could answer. We'll head west. The marshal nodded. Keep the statement. Might be worth something someday. Clara took it, folding the paper carefully. It still smelled of smoke. Riker looked at Jesse. If you ever come back, you'll have to answer for that bounty. I'll be ready, Jesse said. Good, Riker replied. Just make sure she doesn't end up back here. They rode out an hour later, under the veil of dusk, through the hills and into the scrubland beyond. Clara didn't speak for a long time. Neither did Jesse. The land rolled wide before them, shadows long and blue across the grass. Somewhere behind them, Deadwater still smoked from the fires Jesse had started. When the silence became too much, Clara asked, was it worth it? Jesse glanced at her. What? Riding through hell to get here. He nodded once. I'd ride through worse. She smiled, faint and tired. I never stopped believing you'd come. I never stopped riding. Night deepened. Stars wheeled overhead. The trail stretched west, unknown and wild. Behind them, a noose swayed in the wind with no neck to hold. And ahead, whatever came next. Together. Narrator. Asterisk, some say the frontier was a land of promise. Others say it was a graveyard for the stubborn. But I say it was a test for love, for truth, for the kind of fire that doesn't burn out. And that day, one woman lived not because the law made room for mercy, but because one man believed she was worth saving. Asterisk, asterisk, and sometimes that's all it takes. Asterisk, asterisk, the gallows waited for her, but he rode through fire to stop it. Asterisk, to be continued, the moon was high and waning when Jesse and Clara rode out of Deadwater, the sky bruised with smoke and silence. Behind them, the town slept uneasily, the gallows still standing but empty now, its hunger denied for the first time in years. Clara's mare limped from a frantic escape, hooves tender from cobbled stones. Jesse's gelding was worse, lathered, bleeding, and done for. They rode until the stars faded and the ridgeline bled red with dawn. Only then did Jesse pull up near an arroyo choked with thorn brush, signaling with a raised hand. Clara stopped beside him, her fingers stiff from gripping reins too long. Neither had spoken since leaving. Now, the silence had grown heavy, expectant. We can't make it far like this, he said, dismounting. Clara slid down slowly, legs trembling beneath her skirt. They'll come after us. Not if we make ourselves hard to find. They know these hills. So do I, Jesse said. He reached under his coat and winced. Blood had seeped through his shirt. He'd been grazed during the jailbreak. Clara stepped forward, steadying him. Her hands were small and calloused, a teacher's hands, but there was strength in them. You're hurt. I've been worse. Lie still, she said, already tugging a strip of linen from her bag. Jesse dropped to one knee beside a fallen mesquite and let her tend him. He studied her face in the shifting morning light. There were hollows under her eyes and a tightness around her mouth that hadn't been there before. But her spine was straight, and her hands never trembled. I didn't think I'd see you again, she murmured, dabbing blood from his ribs. I didn't think I'd make it. What happened to the trapper? Miles Conroy? Found him drunk in a burned-out cabin east of Fort Stock. Took 2 days to sober him up, one to convince him to talk, and another to keep him alive after Wren's men tracked us. He signed the statement the night before he died. Died. Arrow to the chest. Don't know who fired it. Clara paused. They're not done with us. No, but they'll have to catch us first. They spent the day holed up in a narrow cut between red rock cliffs, hidden beneath brush and dust. Jesse scouted briefly, found a stream and shot a hare for supper. Clara built the fire low, tucked in behind stone. As twilight fell, they sat close to its glow, sharing strips of meat and silence. I used to think the world was a book, Clara said at last. Orderly, knowable, like grammar or spelling. And now, it's a fire, unruly, hungry. Jesse chuckled dryly. You've seen the truth. I've seen what happens when no one stands up. He looked at her, the flicker of flame dancing in her eyes. You did. Not enough. You did, he said again, firmly. She turned her face away, but not before he saw the sheen of tears. The next morning, they left the horses tethered and took to the hills on foot, winding through gullies and arroyos, following paths Jesse remembered from his time with the Comanche. By midday, the sun blistered the earth, and buzzards circled overhead. Clara's face burned, freckles darkening, lips cracking. Still, she didn't complain. Around a bend, Jesse halted suddenly, raising his hand. Ahead, fresh tracks, a trio of riders. Deep, fast-moving. Too recent to ignore. Bounty hunters, he muttered. They're close. Closer than I'd like. We'll cut west, lose them in the flats. But that takes us near the river. Better the river than a bullet. They changed course, descending into saltbush country where sand choked the roots and every step crunched. The air shimmered with heat. Jesse carried his Colt low and ready, eyes sharp. Clara followed, skirts hitched, her steps quiet and careful. They made camp beneath a stone overhang as the sky turned copper. Jesse dozed with his back to the rock, rifle across his knees. Clara kept watch, though her eyelids drooped with exhaustion. Just before dusk, a dry rasp split the air. Rattlesnake. Jesse lunged before Clara could move, dragging her side. The snake coiled and struck, its fangs slashing Jesse's forearm. He hissed in pain and dropped to one knee, gripping the wound. Clara didn't hesitate. She grabbed his knife, slashed open the bite, and pressed her lips to the bleeding flesh, sucking hard. Stop, Jesse rasped. No, you'll poison yourself. Better me than you. She spat blood into the dust and sucked again. Jesse's skin turned pale, eyes fluttering. She worked until the wound bled freely, then tore a strip from her petticoat and bound it tight above the elbow. His breathing slowed, but he stayed conscious. You're stubborn, he said, voice thin. You're reckless. They didn't sleep much that night. Jesse drifted in and out of fever. Clara stayed at his side, pressing damp cloths to his forehead, whispering stories of the schoolhouse, of books, of sunlight on river water. By dawn, his color had returned. You saved my life, he said. You saved mine first. He smiled faintly. We'll call it even. That morning, the sound of distant hoofbeats returned. They scrambled to break camp, but Jesse was too weak to run. Clara helped him up, slinging his good arm over her shoulders. We have to cross the river, he said. Can you make it? No choice. They moved slowly, Jesse limping badly, Clara guiding each step. The river came into view, wide, fast, brown with silt. No bridge, no crossing point. On the far bank, cottonwoods waved like ghosts. "They'll spot us in the open," Clara said. Jesse nodded. "You go first. I'll hold them off." "No, Clara, I'm not leaving you." "You have to." "I won't." A final surge. Then the river spat them out into tangled reeds and cold sand. Behind them, the riders reined in on the bank, shouting curses. One fired again, too far. The bullet splashed harmlessly. They didn't try to cross. Clara lay, gasping beside Jesse, coughing river water. "We made it," he said, blinking up at the sky. "Barely." He grinned. "I'll take it." They didn't stop moving until dusk, pushing inland through cottonwood groves and rocky ravines. At last, just as the last light faded, they saw smoke curling from behind a hill. Jesse's face tightened. "That's Comanche fire." "Yours?" "I hope so." They approached slowly. A child spotted them first, dark-eyed and silent, darting back into the trees. Minutes later, 4 men emerged, bows drawn, faces painted. One of them stepped forward, a tall warrior with a hawk feather braid. "Jesse Creed," he said in a low voice. Jesse straightened. "I come in peace, Black Fox. You bring death. I bring truth." Black Fox's eyes shifted to Clara. "She is pale-faced. She saved me. And you bring her here? She's family." Black Fox studied him a long moment. Then he nodded once. "Come. But if trouble follows, we leave you behind." They followed him into the camp, where fires burned low and the smell of venison filled the air. Women brought blankets. An old woman approached Clara, taking her hands. "She is Moon Elk," Jesse whispered. "She raised me after my mother died." Moon Elk looked at Clara with eyes full of storms and memory. Then she smiled faintly and led her to a tent. Jesse sank down near the fire, breathing hard. "I didn't think you'd find them," Clara said, sitting beside him. "I didn't think we'd live long enough." The fire crackled. Clara touched his shoulder gently. "Rest now." "I can't." "Why not?" "Because if we stop moving, they'll catch us. And I've got one more thing to do." "What?" "Finish what we started." He closed his eyes. For the first time in days, he slept. The night passed without trouble. The Comanche watched the hills. Clara dreamt of nooses and river currents and the weight of Jesse's body in her arms. By morning, Jesse was awake, dressed, and standing tall. The wound in his arm still throbbed, but his eyes were clear. "We ride back," he said. Clara blinked. "Back? To Deadwater? They'll kill us." "No," he said. "Not this time." He unrolled a piece of rawhide, revealing a folded page, the signed confession. "We go back. We give this to the people. Let them see it. Let them feel it. And if they don't care, then we burn the town to ash." Clara stared at him, heart thudding. "You're serious." He met her gaze. "I rode through fire once. I'll do it again." She took his hand. "Then I ride with you." Together, they turned to face the rising sun. To be continued. The thunder rolled in before they reached the canyon. Not the kind born of weather, but of hooves, fast, purposeful, and close. Jesse Creed didn't need to look back to know they were being followed. The land stretched wide and open to the west, but it was a trap now, nothing but sky above and nowhere to run but forward. He tightened his grip on the reins, his horse panting hard beneath him, hooves kicking dust like smoke. Clara Boone rode, just behind, low in the saddle, eyes narrowed against the wind. Her rifle bounced across her back, but her hand never strayed far from her revolver. Since Deadwater, she hadn't said much. But her silence was not fear. It was calculation. "They're riding hard," she shouted. Jesse glanced over his shoulder. Dust clouded the trail behind them, 6 riders, maybe more, barely a mile back. "They won't stop," he said. "Not now. Wren's gone. What more do they want? Revenge don't need a reason. Just a taste." Clara didn't reply. She pushed her horse harder. The canyon loomed ahead, its jagged teeth carved into the land by time and fury. Jesse had been through it once before, years ago. It was narrow, winding, perfect for an ambush or a last stand. He didn't like either option, but it was the only way through. They reached the entrance just as the last of the sun dipped behind the hills. The sky went blood orange. Jesse pulled up listening. Nothing but the wind and the faint echo of hooves behind them. He turned to Clara. "We take the high pass." She shook her head. "Too exposed. They'll pick us off like birds. Better than getting caught in the funnel. You got another plan?" She didn't. Neither of them did. They pressed into the canyon. The walls closed in fast, all red rock and ancient silence. The sound of their horses' hooves echoed 100 times over. Shadows moved strangely here, thick and quick like ghosts. Jesse felt the weight of the trail in his chest. Clara leaned low, speaking softly. "I don't like this." "Neither do I." Then it came, sharp and sudden. The crack of a rifle. Jesse's horse reared, a bullet slicing past its flank. Clara's mount screamed and stumbled. She leapt off before it fell, drawing her revolver mid-roll and firing into the rocks. Jesse slid down and hauled Clara behind a boulder. Another shot ricocheted nearby. "Ambush," he growled. "They're already here. We can't stay in the open." Jesse fired once, then again, aiming high. A scream echoed down from the ridge. He grabbed Clara's hand. "There's a cave up ahead," he said. "Small, but defensible." She didn't ask how he knew. She just ran. They sprinted low through the scrub and stone, bullets snapping over their heads. Jesse led the way, heart thundering, lungs burning. He spotted the narrow crevice halfway up a ridge and pointed. Clara didn't hesitate. She scrambled up first, her boots finding traction in the fractured rock. By the time Jesse followed her in, they were both bleeding, scrapes, bruises, nothing deep. But the adrenaline ran thin now, replaced by grim resolve. Inside, the cave was no more than a hollow, enough for two to crouch, rifles ready, eyes trained on the narrow pass below. The sun dipped further, turning the canyon into a pit of shadows. "They'll come soon," Clara said, loading fresh rounds. Jesse nodded. "And they'll expect us to run. Let's make sure they regret it." He looked at her then, really looked in the dim light of the cave. Her face was streaked with dirt, her hair tangled, her eyes hard. But behind the flint was something else. Fire. The same fire that made her stand tall on the gallows. The same fire that made her run into a river, into the wild, into the unknown, with him. He looked at her then, really looked, and whatever protest he had faded. "All right," he said softly. "Together, then." They waded into the water, arms locked. The current grabbed them instantly, fierce and hungry. Clara gasped as it pulled at her legs, dragging her sideways. Jesse held fast, but his strength faltered. A shout from the bluff. 3 riders spotted them. Gunshots cracked overhead. Jesse spun, shielding Clara with his body. A bullet grazed his shoulder. Another struck the water inches from her face. "Go," he yelled. She kicked hard, pushing them both toward the far shore. Mud sucked at their feet. Jesse stumbled. Clara grabbed his collar, dragging him forward. "You're not who you were in Deadwater," he said. She didn't smile. "Neither are you." They sat in silence for a long minute. Outside, the night crept in. A coyote cried somewhere up in the rocks. Then came the sound of footsteps, boots on stone. Jesse held his breath. Clara didn't move. 3 shadows emerged at the edge of the trail, dark shapes against darker rock. One held a lantern. Another had a rifle slung across his chest. They moved slowly, carefully. Jesse raised his gun, aiming down the slope. Clara did the same. Closer. The man with the lantern stepped forward. "Creed, we know you're here." His voice echoed like thunder across the canyon. "You've got no more law to hide behind. No more marshals. No more townsfolk." Another man added, "You hand her over, and maybe we let you ride out." Clara exhaled slowly, eyes locked on Jesse. "They're bluffing," he whispered. "They'll get us both either way." "I say we answer them." Jesse nodded. Clara fired first. The lantern shattered in the man's hand. Darkness swallowed the path. Jesse followed with a shot to the left. The second man screamed and dropped. Chaos exploded in the canyon. Gunfire roared. Echoes twisted sound into a storm. Bullets sparked off stone. Jesse and Clara kept low, firing in short bursts, conserving rounds. They had maybe 12 shots left between them. Below, the remaining men scrambled for cover, shouting orders, cursing the dark. One tried to circle up the ridge. Clara spotted him first. She shifted, tracked him across the rocks, and fired once. He tumbled backward with a broken cry, hitting stone hard. Jesse looked at her, eyes wide. You shoot like you were born with iron in your hand. I learned from watching you. Guess I'm a bad influence. You're alive, aren't you? He almost laughed. Almost. Then a rock exploded inches from Jesse's head. He dropped flat, gasping. Another shot tore into the cave wall, spraying grit. The men below had a better angle now. Jesse peeked over the edge, aimed carefully, and squeezed off a shot. Missed. Clara was already moving. She climbed past him, using shadows, boots silent. She disappeared into the upper ledge. Jesse wanted to call after her, but he trusted her. A minute passed. Then another. Gunfire paused. A sharp scream rang out. Another shot, muffled. Then silence. Clara returned, panting, blood on her sleeve. They're down, she said. All of them. Jesse stared. You took them out? 3 left. Got 2. The last one ran. Damn. She looked away. I didn't want to, but I had to. He reached for her hand. We do what we must. That's all the West ever asks of us. They didn't wait for morning. By moonlight, they picked through the bodies, took what ammo they could, a canteen, a compass. Jesse took a rifle with a clean barrel. Clara pocketed a letter one of the men carried, and signed, but written in the same careful hand as the judge who'd sentenced her weeks ago. Proof that this wasn't just revenge. It was a bounty, a message sent by the men who still ruled in the shadows. They'll keep coming, she said, studying the note. Then we keep riding. They reached the far side of the canyon by dawn. The land beyond opened wide, flat and golden, touched by light. Somewhere past the rise, a river waited. Beyond that, the trail split, north into the Black Hills, west toward California, south into lawless land where names didn't matter. Clara turned in the saddle. She looked at Jesse, his coat torn, jaw dark with stubble, but eyes steady. What now? She asked. He took a breath. Now we make a choice. Which way? He didn't answer at first. Instead, he took her hand and held it warm and firm. Whichever way you want, he said, just so long as I ride beside you. The moment stretched. A breath. A heartbeat. Clara smiled, small, tired but real. The kind that wasn't born of peace, but survival. Then let's ride west, she said, and not stop till we forget what ropes ever felt like. Their horses moved as one. Dust rose behind them, caught in the morning light like smoke from an old fire. The past lay, buried behind the canyon. The gallows, the lies, the blood, they were all still there, waiting. But Jesse Creed and Clara Boone didn't look back. They were riding forward, and the West, wild and wide and waiting, opened its arms to them like a promise. Narrator. Asterisk, so ends the tale of 2 souls who outran the noose and the law, not with luck, but with grit, blood, and the fire of something rarer than justice, love forged in survival. The kind that doesn't promise peace, only the chance to keep riding. Asterisk, if this story left a mark, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. And stay tuned, because some trails don't end. They just bend toward the next storm. Asterisk, to be continued. The wind came hard off the prairie that morning, carrying with it the dry whisper of fate. Jesse Creed stood at the edge of the Comanche encampment, saddle cinched, rifle strapped to his back. His wounds were bound, his strength not yet whole, but the fire in his chest burned hotter than ever. Clara Boone stepped beside him, hair braided tight, eyes like flint. She had borrowed a rifle from Black Fox and wore a rough coat stitched from elk hide. Neither of them said goodbye. The people of the camp simply watched them go, quiet, unreadable, as the sun broke the horizon. They rode without looking back. The trail to Deadwater felt longer this time, not for distance, but for weight. Each mile carried memory of gallows and betrayal, of dust-choked silence and the ache of waiting. Clara didn't ask what Jesse planned to do when they arrived. She knew, and he knew she wouldn't stop him. By midday, they crested the ridge overlooking the town. Deadwater shimmered in the heat below, as ordinary and dangerous as ever. Smoke rose from chimneys. The saloon's piano bled broken notes into the air, and beyond the rooftops, the gallows still stood, rope swaying gently in the wind. "Looks like nothing changed," Clara muttered. Jesse's jaw tensed. "It will." They dismounted in a dry wash half a mile out. Jesse checked the folded parchment tucked inside his coat, the confession for Miles Conroy, still ink-stained and stained with blood at the corner. Proof. A man's dying words, sworn with shaking hands. Clara helped him strap on his gun belt. Her fingers brushed his side, lingering just a moment. "You sure about this?" she asked. He looked at her, eyes softening. "No, but I don't see any other way." Then they walked, side by side, two figures, rising from the dust like revenants, headed for the heart of the town that had nearly killed them. People stopped what they were doing as they passed. The butcher dropped his cleaver. Children stared wide-eyed from porches. A drunk spilled whiskey on his boots and cursed under his breath. No one moved to stop them. Not yet. They pushed through the batwing doors of the saloon together. The place went quiet like a church before a storm. Silas Wren sat at his usual table beneath the mounted elk head, cigar between his fingers, gold watch gleaming in the low light. Two deputies flanked him, hands resting easy on their pistols. Marshal Riker stood at the bar, cup of black coffee halfway to his lips. Jesse didn't pause. He crossed the floor like a man walking to a duel, slow and sure. Clara followed, rifle in hand. "Silas," Jesse said, voice calm. Wren's smile never reached his eyes. "You're a bold man, Creed. I brought something for you." Jesse tossed the folded paper onto the table. Wren glanced down but didn't touch it. "Miles Conroy's confession," Jesse said. "He named your son as the one who tried to force Clara. Named you as the man who paid to silence it. That paper's signed and witnessed." Wren leaned back in his chair. "A dead, drunk scribbles don't scare me." Riker stepped forward, face unreadable. "Let me see it." Wren's eyes flicked to him, then back to Jesse. "Careful, Marshal. You wouldn't want to side with a fugitive." "I'd like to see it," Riker said again, firmer. Jesse nodded. "Go ahead." The Marshal picked up the parchment, opened it, read it once, then again. His brow furrowed. Slowly, he looked up at Clara. Then Jesse. "Is it true?" he asked her quietly. Clara's voice was steady. "Your town never wanted the truth. They just wanted a name to blame." Riker folded the paper and slid it into his coat. "You're still wanted, Creed," he said. "But I'm not arresting either of you today." "You're making a mistake," Wren growled, standing. "That's a forged scrap of nonsense. You think people believe a savage's word and a whore's." Jesse moved faster than thought. One step forward, revolver drawn. The barrel pressed to Wren's chest. "Say that again," Jesse said. The saloon held its breath. The deputies reached for their guns, but Riker barked, "Don't." Everyone froze. Wren sneered. "What now, Creed? You gonna shoot me in front of the whole town?" "I came to show them who you are," Jesse said. "But I won't shed blood unless you make me." Wren laughed once. "You think that piece of paper changes anything? I own this town. I built it. These people won't turn on me." A voice spoke from the back of the saloon. Quiet but clear. "No, you didn't build it. You bled it." It was old Henry, the blacksmith. He stood with arms folded, soot still streaked on his sleeves. Beside him, Mrs. Lindley, the schoolmarm. Then the preacher. Then the barber. One by one, they stepped forward, lining up behind Jesse and Clara. Silas Wren's smile finally faltered. "You're done," Riker said quietly. Wren snarled, hand darting for his pistol. Gunfire erupted. Jesse fired first. Wren jerked back, blood blooming across his vest. One of the deputies drew, but Clara's rifle roared. He dropped screaming, shoulder shattered. The second deputy turned to run. Riker shot him in the leg. The smoke cleared. Wren slumped in his chair, dead. The saloon stank of gunpowder and sweat. Jesse stood still, gun lowered. Clara didn't move. You all right? He asked her softly. She nodded, eyes wide but steady. You. He breathed once, twice, then holstered the Colt, still standing. Riker stepped forward, picked up Wren's pistol, and dropped it in a spittoon. We'll hold a hearing. Public this time, with a real judge. Burn the gallows, Clara said, voice like steel. The townsfolk murmured. You heard her, Riker told them. Let it burn. That night, fire lit the sky. They dragged the scaffold into the square, soaked it in kerosene, and torched it. Flames crackled and rose, spitting sparks into the wind. Jesse and Clara stood shoulder to shoulder, watching it fall. The rope hissed as it blackened, then snapped apart and vanished. Someone cheered, then others. The town didn't change all at once, but something shifted in that moment, in the light of that fire. Later, in the quiet, dark, Jesse and Clara sat on the porch of the old boarding house. She held a cup of coffee. He rolled a cigarette he never lit. Tomorrow, she said, we ride again. He looked at her, half smiling. You still sure? She turned her head to him, and her voice dropped. There's nothing for me here but ashes. There's a world out west. Then let's go find it. He took her hand, held it like something breakable and sacred. You saved me, she said again. You were worth saving, he replied. The stars spun overhead. Somewhere a coyote howled. Narrator, asterisk. So, what do we take from this tale? Maybe it's this: the frontier was never fair. It didn't care for truth, for justice, or even for love. But sometimes a person finds someone willing to ride through fire just to keep them breathing. And sometimes that's enough to change everything. Asterisk, he was no hero. She was no saint. But together, they rode beyond the noose and the grave into a land untamed, where stories begin, not end. Asterisk, if the story moved you, like, share, and tell us in the comments, what would you ride through fire to save? Asterisk.